Hey guys, welcome back. So what we're going to do is we are going to do the second half of the problems now. So we just solved for x. In 14, we solved for x when you have a variable part with a variable, without a variable, and then an answer. Okay. And we have to remember inverse operations. 17. We solved for x once we'd used the distributive property and distributed the 3 amongst the x and the 2 in each equation. Then we ignored the 5 and we ignored the 12. And then we did negative 2 times x and negative 2 times 1. So now, using distributive property, so now what we're going to do is we're basically given, without the parentheses, we're given the answer. So we're going to do 19a, and that is 2x plus 6 equals 6x plus 2. Now, as long as you know that addition and subtraction are inverse operations and multiplication and division are inverse operations, you can do these problems. All you have to do, now right now you're seeing a variable without a variable, with a variable, without a variable, and you're like, well, what's the point? The point is to teach you math. So we can decide all of these. Well, then you look, this is positive, this is positive, this is positive, and this is positive. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. So now I know I'm going to subtract. Whatever side I decide to do, I'm going to subtract. And I want to combine like terms. So I have this and this with a variable, and this without a variable. Now, if I look at this, it's set up really nicely for me, because if I'm going to subtract something, I want to make sure that I'm trying to subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. So I'm going to subtract 2 from this side, and I'm going to subtract 2x from this side. And what I do with one side, I'm going to make sure that I do this to the one without a variable, and I do this to the one with a variable. That's supposed to be a 2x, not a 6x. Sorry about that. So I have 2x minus 2x equaling 0. Now I have 6 minus 2 is 4. 6x minus 2x equals negative. Just kidding. It does not equal a negative. Is 4x. And then positive 2 minus 2 is 0. So now I have 4 equaling 4x. What's the inverse operation of multiplication? Division. And that's because I am multiplying. These two are being multiplied together right now. So I'm going to divide by 4, x equals 1. And how do we check our answer? I have an x right here. It says that x is 1. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to plug it in here. And I'm going to plug it in here. So now I have 2 times 1 plus 6 equal to 6 times 1 plus 2. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 6. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 2. 2 plus 6 is 8. And 6 plus 2 is 8. So that means that x is for sure 1. Now I'm going to go to 20. Right here, it says for exercise 20 and 20, when you use the equation y equals 4 minus 3x, it is giving you the equation. All it's asking you to do is plug in these numbers one at a time for x. And down here, when y. So for 20, we're taking this and we're plugging the x in for, we're plugging 4 in for x. Or Once we come up with that answer, we do another problem. We plug in -3 for x. Come up with that answer, figure it out for this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to write this down. So y equals 4 minus 3x. So I'm going to figure it out when x equals -3. So this is 20b. When y is -3. Sorry, when x is -3, my bad. So y equals 4 minus 3 times -3. I have y equal to 4. I have a -3 times a -3, which equals a 9. Y equals 13. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do that step. Okay. Find x when y equals 0. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it in for y and leave x there. So now we're solving for x. So I have y equal to 0, and this is 21a. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to try and get 3x by itself. So if I get 3x by itself, I need -3x, sorry, -3x. I'm going to get rid of that. So if that is a +4, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract it. And that -3x, 3 and x are being multiplied together. The inverse of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide by -3. X equals 4/3. All you're doing is taking these numbers, the 4, the -3, the 2, the 0, the -4/3. You're plugging it in for x. Find x when you have y. It's giving you y. It's telling you that y is 0, y is 21, y is -15, y is 3.5. You're solving for each one of those equations. Okay. So number 24. Two student solutions to the equation 6 times x plus 4 equals 3x minus 2 are shown below. Both students made an error. Find the errors and give the correct solution. Well, first off, what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to come up with our own solution. So number 24, 6 times x plus 4 equals 3x minus 2. Okay. So now I have that part of my equation. Let me move this back. Now I have that part of my equation. So first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my order of operations. So parentheses. What's in parentheses? The x plus 4. What is being done in those parentheses? You're multiplying. So you can't add something with a variable and something without a variable. You cannot add them together. It is impossible. It will not give you the correct answer. So what you have to do now is you have to do what's done in the parentheses, what is being done to the parentheses. Well, the parentheses are being multiplied by the distributive property. So 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 4 is 24. And put that equal to 3x minus 2. Now remember what we did back up here on 19? We made sure that we did something with every single one of these pieces because there's 2 with variables and 2 without. So we're going to combine like terms. On this one, we have a 6x and a 3x and a positive 24 and a negative 2. So we could add, or we could subtract, 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 and add, because the inverse of addition is subtraction, and the inverse of subtraction is addition. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to Let me see. Well, I'm going to get a negative no matter how I look at it. Because if I add 2 to here, that's going to give me positive 26, but then I have to subtract 6, which gives me negative 3. So I'm going to get a negative answer no matter what. So let's just figure out what would be easier. Let's add, let's subtract 24 here. And remember, we're going this way. When we subtract, we're moving away from the 0. So then that is a negative 26. And then we're going to subtract a 3x. 6 minus 3 is 3. So now I have a 3x equal to negative 26. And the opposite, the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So I'm multiplying the 3 times the x right now. So to get rid of that 3, I'm going to divide by 3. And what is 26 divided by 3? It's not a pretty number, is it? Well, let's do this. Well, first off, let's figure out if it's going to be a positive or a negative. Because I have a negative on the top and a positive on the bottom. So it's going to be a negative because a positive and a negative equal a negative. That's what I thought. Either 8 2/3 or negative 8.67. Okay? So now what we have to do, now we solved it for ourselves. So now we have to go back and look at this and say the first thing we did was 6x plus 24 equals 3x minus 2. Well, this person, what student number 1 did, what student number 1 did was they took this 6 and they subtracted it from the first side. So now they just have x plus 4 equals 3x minus 2 minus 6. Well, then they combine the negative 2 and the negative 6 to equal negative 8. But you can see that this is the first step that they messed up on. So we know that one's wrong. Like, we know it's not x is not 6. Now, what about this one? Let's see. Well, they did 6x. They used the distributive property, but they didn't distribute all the way out. So that student actually messed up on that second step right there. So we know that that's not right. Okay. What else did it ask us to do? Find the errors and give a correct solution. Well, the correct solution is negative 8.67 or negative 8 2/3. This person came up with negative 2 and that person came up with 6. So we know that they were way wrong. I'm going to leave you guys to do 25 on your own. 27. (27a). Use the equation P equals 10 minus 2.5c. So A, find P when C is 3.2. So what's negative 2.5 times 3.2? I have P equal to 10 minus 8. So P equals what? 2. So now what you're going to do for B, find C when P equals 85. So I have P equal to 85 equals 10 minus 2.5 C. So now you're going to do the inverse to get rid of the 10. You're going to do the inverse of addition, which is subtraction. And then to get rid of the negative 2.5 and get C by itself, you're going to divide by negative 2.5. And then the answer to 27C is kind of the same thing that we already did for 1A and B. Now we're going to do 28. Use the equation M equals 15.75 plus 3.2 D. Find M when. So the same thing that we just did on 20 and 21, just different letters. All you're doing is plugging in D and M. So I'm going to do 28A. Find M when D equals 20. So I have M equal to 15.75 plus 3.2 times 20. And you can't even see that. Okay? All I did was take this number that they gave me and I plugged it in for D. So now we can solve this. M is equal to 3.2 times 20 is 64. 64, 74, 79.75. So M is equal to 79.75. And 28B, it's saying find D when M is 54.15. And yes, you do have to do 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so let me skip a line. Okay, now I have 54.15 because it told me I'm finding D when M is 54.15. M is 54.15 and I need to find D. So that's what I'm going to do down here. So right now, the easiest thing to do would be to isolate the 3.2D. And I'm going to do that by subtracting 15.75 from both sides because I need to get rid of it over here. So it gives me a 0. And then 54.15 minus 15.75 is equal to 38.40. Yeah. So now I have 38.40 equal to 3.2D. I need to isolate D. I have to get it by itself because that's what I am finding an answer for. So I have 3.2D. They're being multiplied together. This is basically 3.2 times D. So the opposite or the inverse operation of multiplication is division. $38.4, that did not seem right, divided by 3.2. D is equal to 12. And lastly, number 31. The International Links Long Distance Phone Company charges no monthly fee. So Links, no monthly fee. But charges 18 cents per minute. So I know that 1/8 is going to be my slope. M is going to be my X because it's 18 cents per minute. And then my B, it's 0 because there's no monthly fee, so there's no flat rate. So I know that if I didn't use any minutes at all, my coordinates would be 0, 0, because this is what y is when x is 0. And since there is no monthly fee, if I put a 0 here, 0.18 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay? So, however, then the world connection, so we're going to use them as W. Long distance company charges $50 a month plus 10 cents per minute. And the reason I put the 50 at the end is so that they would line up, so that the equations would line up nice and neat. Because this is what y is when x is 0. Because that's how much they're getting charged a month without even using their phone. That is my flat rate. That is my service charge, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes your brain work and pop. Okay. Compare the World Connections long distance plan to that of International Links. Well, when it says compare, that means we need to put them equal to each other. Okay. But I can't put them equal to each other because I have two different variables on each side. So now I need to decide, well, this one, I need to figure out how many minutes I can use where this one is only $50. So let's do $50 equals 1/8M. Right now I'm multiplying 18 cents in M, so I'm going to divide by 0.18. And M is going to be 277.8 minutes. Well, I know for a fact that I'm going to have to talk a heck of a lot more than that. If 277.8 minutes is my minimum for $50, think about how much 277.8 minutes is going to cost me on this plan. So let's plug that in. Let's just round it up to 278. It's a nice number. So that's $77.80. So I'm already way ahead in minutes on this plan. So what you're going to do from here, you're basically trial and erroring it. And eventually what you could do is 0.18M equals 0.10M plus 50. I know how to do that. I know how to put it to where I know what by putting them equal to each other. I'm going to find out what M is for both of them to be equal. So this one's 18 cents a minute. This one's 10 cents a minute plus $50. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to subtract the 0.10M from this side because I'm adding it, minus 0.10M. So the difference is 10 cents a minute and that 8 cents a minute and that $50. So now I'm going to divide by 0.08. $625 minutes. So for these plans to be equal, for my 18 cent a minute plan and my 10 cents a minute plan plus $50, for them to be equal minutes, I have to talk, well, and amount of money, I have to talk for 625 minutes. So under what circumstance is it cheaper to use international links? Explain your reasoning. I just did the problem for you. You can solve that one by yourself. Write an inequality that describes when each company is cheaper. Represent the solution and the inequality on a graph. I'm not going to make you draw a graph, but you do have to write an inequality. And if you need to look up what an inequality is, go ahead and look it up. All right. Thanks, guys.